A very welcome to all of you. Today, we will understand what is feminism and what impact did it have on film criticisms and film theories. So, first, let us understand that what feminism is all about. Now, feminism is a social movement which had huge impacts on film criticisms and analytical views of how to read a film. Now, since, as I told you, that feminism is a social movement, let us first briefly understand its historical perspective. Like, since history, how has it moved, throughout the ages, or it has traversed the number of years? First, what we called is the first wave of feminism. It started, in the late 19th and it existed in the first half of the early 20th century. Now, the first wave of feminism, as you can understand, that it is a very early feminism, that is, women are starting to be getting aware of themselves, their individual rights, their individual, what they should get from the government, what they should not get from the government. This is the first stage of when women are getting aware of their individual rights. Now, this was the phase when in America, a few women, they organized, and they understood that it is their moral right, it is their moral duty to protest against what is not happening right in their country. That was the time when it was the very nascent democracy that grew up in America. And that nascent democracy, it did a very hilarious effect to America, as all of you know, that it gave rise to slavery. Now, these women, they understood that, once they had made a march in order to protest against against slavery, against the black women who have been, miserably tortured, and they were not being given their individual rights and freedom. Now, they understood that their power, their protest had no basic power because as they were women. So even if they marched in long numbers, in huge numbers, they went, they protested, but no one was ready to listen to them because they were women. Who are women? They don't have any right or any power to protest. So that was the first wave of feminism, when women understood that they must be recognized as to be a someone, not just giving birth to children and allying to the men, but they are somebody who must have recognition, and they must be recognized by the law, by the state. So that was the first wave of feminism, which gave us our very important and individual right to vote. That is universal, suffrage. That is, everybody, irrespective of sex, have the right to vote. That was being first, received, or that was being first won by the first wave of feminism. Now, the second wave of feminism, you can say that is the most vibrant form of, or the wave of feminism that we understand feminism right now. It started from 1960s and it lasted till 1988. Now, that was the time when women actually fought for equal rights and equal social justice. That it was not the woman's only duty to give birth and restrict themselves to the domestic sphere, but all the other opportunities and responsibilities and duties that men are enjoying in the outer field, women have the same right, same duty to take away the responsibility, to share the responsibility. That if it is the man's duty to work outside and earn, it is also the responsibility of the woman to share that load. So that was the second phase of feminism. This is the time when the two phases like sex and gender, this was being coined. Sex is biological and gender is constructed. That it is a term that has been constructed from within the society, that what differentiates the two sexes. So it is a socially constructed term, whereas sex is biological. Now, this is the second phase of feminism that you can see when women became aware of themselves. They used their organizational skills to use speech. They marched. They wrote books. They organized all of the people to be assembled at somewhere, and they fought for their rights. The rights was for equal pay for equal work. They fought for the rights to be getting out of their house, and most importantly, the rights and the concept of a body, that a woman should decide what is to be done with her body and not anyone else. Because in cases of childbirth, in cases of abortion, in cases of pregnancy, it has to be the woman who will decide what to do with these issues, and not male doctors. That was perceived then, that they knew the woman body and what is good for the society better. So this changed the entire law of property, law of inheritance. That had a big impact on the social and political life of every nation where these movements grew up. Then came the third wave of feminism, which lasted from the 1988, and you can say that it lasted till 2008. Now, what was this third phase of feminism? Now, this third phase of feminism was like that women themselves rejected the idea to be labeled as feminists. Sometimes we think, oh, she's a feminist, that means, she always fights, she always speaks louder, she always speaks for rights, she goes to marches, she always... Now, this type of coinage, this type of labeling was completely been banned by this kind of new feminists who were tech savvy, who were, very much consumerist in their outlook. So these people said that you don't need not to be a feminist, you don't have to, label yourself as to be a feminist. You don't have to write in some column, you don't have to go to any place. That is not what feminism is all about. It's about a perceivedness. Like, it is not always that all women are good and all men are bad. That is not the case. Okay, so if you go to an all-woman friendly zone and you say that you are very safe and that is your emancipation of woman emancipation or actual emancipation of power, that is not the case. High heels, lipstick, looking good has actually no clash or contrast with having brains and fighting for your rights. So you can have both. So this kind of positivity that was being expounded by the third wave of feminism. Like in Indian context, it was said that look at the grandmothers. Can you say that they are the woman oppressed class that has been oppressed by the patriarchy? Can we ever say that? Because she's the deciding factor of our household. She says what even your father, even your uncle, listens to it. So you cannot describe or demarcate that, woman has to be the very, always oppressed by patriarchy. So that might not always be the case. It is very subjective. It is as to be perceived according to cultures and according to situations. It cannot be labeled like that. Now, the fourth wave of feminism, you can say that whether it is a reincarnation of the second wave of feminism. It said that, there are still issues of woman oppression, of women, they are not being given the proper rights, proper justice. And the third wave of feminism was been too positive, was been too good, that it, it just waved away all these minor issues. Now, there are still violence on women, there are domestic violences, there are physical violence on women. So there must be a place, a platitude where people will go assemble and talk about their rights. So it's not that you can say that it is a reincarnation of the second wave of feminism. Neither it can be said that okay, fine, third wave of feminism failed and was rejected by some, and so therefore this fourth wave of feminism came in. No, it's not that, but it tried to work on what the third wave of feminism have left out, and what are the issues and questions of rights that were been raised by the second wave of feminism. These are the four waves of feminism, and as you can understand that these had a huge impact on the film theories and the tools of analysis and how we are looking at films. Now, the feminist film theory, they dealt with mainly two things. One is the representation of woman on screen, that how a woman is being projected or shown, how the image of what the message, an image of a woman is showing or is telling through the screen. And the second is the gaze of the spectator, that who is watching it. Okay, so these are the two things that mostly feminist film theories deal with. One is the representation of woman and the second is the gaze of the spectator. Now, firstly, in the very early feminist film thoughts, that was they propagated that there are negative images of women that are being projected on screen, and they have a negative impact on whoever is watching them. So if you show a woman is bad, then all the spectators will normally start to believe that yes, all women are bad. So this is what they had firstly started, that there are negative projections of women characters, and so therefore that have a bad effect on the viewers or the spectators who are watching them. Now, from then, there was a huge theoretical shift, and then the feminist film theories started to tell that it was not about the negative characters of women which has been projected on screen. It might be that the positive images, that a woman can be seen that she is very nice, she is very good. Good, bad, these are terms, these are coinages which have been coined by us. We put a good is might be a lot of things. It can bring out a lot of meanings. So it's not about the kind of characters, but in what context she is being told, in what textual discourse she is being projected. That matters. That deals with what kind of message we put to that image of woman that has been shown to us or the spectators. So from then, there has been the first film critic or a scholar who said that who gave a very broad semiotic view to the idea of woman representation. That is, she said that the image of woman is just a signifier, and whatever meanings we put to that image is very much from the culture that we are brought up or we grow up, and that is very much patriarchal. So all the codes of meaning or the range of meanings that the spectators have, they are all very patriarchal, and from there only they choose the meanings and impose it on the image of the woman that has been represented on screen. So this is the first semiotic theoretical analysis that the feminist film theories first projected. Then in 1975, Laura Mulvey wrote this brilliant essay, that visual pleasures and the film narratives. Now there she dealt with psychoanalysis and semiotic as to be the theoretical tools, and she used mainly psychoanalysis to understand that actually how our women are being represented and at the gaze or how the spectators are looking at it. So from then she used two main psychoanalytic tools, or what she calls that these psychoanalytic tools are nothing but political weapons. She used the term political weapons to understand that what actually the early Hollywood narrative cinema tried to present or tried to give a message to the entire outside world. Firstly, she used the Freudian concept of scopophilia, that is a desire to see. So she says that the entire narrative structure, the textual design, the camera angles, the techniques of the camera, everything, they put an illusion, a fascination about the cinema. What it does is, it distances the spectators from the film. So, the spectators feel that, okay, fine, we are at a safe distance, no one is looking at us. Now they feel the voyeuristic pleasure. Voyeuristic means that is, you are looking into somebody or some actions, and whom you are looking at, he is not aware that you are looking at him. So this is what is Laura Mulvey saying as scopophilia, that there are two kinds of pleasures that the spectator enjoys. One is the scopophilia, that is the voyeuristic pleasure, that is they desire to see, and they see it by as a thief, as a voyeur. That is the other person, that is the characters on the screen, they are not aware that somebody is looking at us. So that gives us some kind of pleasure to the spectator. And another is a narcissistic pleasure, that is the spectator he identifies with the male or the strong protagonist that has been projected on screen. Now for this, Laura Mulvey takes help from the Lacanian mirror image. Whenever a small child looks at the image that has been projected on the mirror, his brain doesn't function so much so what he can see. So maybe his brain cannot understand that he's moving his arm, but before that he can see that he's moving his arm. So what he develops an ego for himself, that who am I? This is what I am. But this is what I am is not with his body. He doesn't touch and feel his body and understand, okay, fine, this is what I look at. No, but he understands or identifies with the image that he sees on screen. Okay, that is what I am. This is not I am. Whatever is this, my body, whatever I'm feeling, that is not me. Whatever I'm seeing, that is me. So this is a kind of narcissistic pleasure that the child develops through the mirror image. So with that misrecognition, he develops an ego. Okay, so and it is also a kind of pleasure that he enjoys. Now the same thing happens when a spectator views the characters or the narratives on screen. So Laura Mulvey says that this entire spectatorship is being ruled over by a male gaze. That is when the characters look at the hero and the heroine. Now as the hero, he develops a gaze while he watches the heroine, and that gaze is superficial, or it is active gaze, than the passive gaze what the female the protagonist looks at the male protagonist. And with this gaze, the active gaze or the active male gaze, even the spectators with the narcissist pleasure identifies with the male gaze of the male character, who is very powerful, all powerful, always right. He's very brave, he's very honest, and he always saves the powerless, timid, beautiful, always cries, very soft, girly, the girl protagonist. So this is the kind of a textual narrative that develops the active and passive discourse. Active is the male hero, passive is the female hero, and the gaze by which the male hero looks at the female heroine is this gaze the spectators also identify with, and they develop a pleasure. Laura Mulvey also says that the meaning structures from where the spectators give meaning to the image on screen is very much guided by the patriarchal order. So therefore the woman is always received as a spectacle or to be looked at. So she is the objectified image on screen, who is looked both by the characters on screen and also has to be looked at. That is how she is being exhibited, shown or brought in front of the audiences, where the audiences also looks at her. So to be looked at-ness, this is the phrase that she used while a woman is being projected on screen. So now this is the overall, in a nutshell, that I can say that what Laura Mulvey's theory on feminist film theory is all about. Now, there has been a lot of criticisms, and also this is the base from where film theory or film critical analysis or the feminist film critical analysis is moved on. You need some base from where you jump and then you move forward. So this is the base, that is how the woman is being projected on screen and how she is being looked at by the viewers. This is the base from which there has been many serious criticisms. There has been gay and lesbian criticisms. There has been bisexual criticisms, and it has also been said that what happens when a woman is watching the film? There can't be any woman spectatorship. How is that being formed? Now, Laura Mulvey, in her way, tried to give an answer to it, that what kind of desire that a woman feels whenever she is looking at it. Laura Mulvey says that the position is altered, and she also acquires the male gaze. And then she watches it. So it doesn't depend on her sex, but it depends on her gender, that he acquires that male gaze and then watches the woman as being projected on screen. Now, it has also been said by various film scholars that she also has a feminine gaze, but that is been too or less powerful than the male gaze that is who captures or gets the hold of the entire viewing pattern or the gaze that is seeing the film altogether. There has also been, you can say that there are female protagonists who also fights, who also rescues, who is also self-rescuer, that is, saves herself. Then what about that? There has been scholars who says that, even then, that image, that female protagonist is masculinized. So that is the term that, she is being treated as a male hero. And that's how the psychoanalysis tells us that she is now seen as a male hero who does everything. So that is how a spectator, he or she, develops or gets that male gaze and then looks at the characters that has been projected on screen. And the film scholar also says the moment the woman becomes the self-rescuer, that she doesn't need any man to rescue her, and after that, everything is all right. Just as we see in the narrative films, typical realist early Hollywood narrative films, the moment from where a girl becomes her self-rescuer, the male spectator, leaves his association or his attachment, mental attachment or mental identification with that female in pain, in awe, that no, this is not that what I am. So there happens an misidentification. So that gives him a pain, which is also masochistic. Somebody who gets a pleasure when pleasure out of a pain or of a sexual pain. So that is what happens when a female protagonist that rules over or gets powered in the entire narrative cinema. So we can understand that there had been a lot of woman who has been projected on screen is always not the man. That is, somehow she is been projected what a man is not all about, and how a man wants to see her. That is what has been shown through the image of the woman on screen. You can cite various examples. You can cite about the advertisements. You can cite about the early films of, say, even in Indian films like Mother India, where the female is the main protagonist, but you always have to understand that how we are seeing as a mother archetype, as a mother role, this is the kind of woman that a male wants to see her to be. So this kind of feminism has been somewhat imposed on her also, that it is not always that we look at a woman what is a womanhood is all about. A womanhood is always defined as what manhood is not. So she is been seen or she has been perceived by the man as the way he wants her to be in his life. So that is how a woman is always been projected on screen. So this is the entire crux or entire summary of the feminist film school that started with, or that received a huge critical favor from the writings of Laura Mulvey, though as I already have said that it received a lot of criticisms. Like, there are various genres of films. It's not only about the classical Hollywood that is ruling the world. There are various other languages of film that has developed. So whether using psychoanalysis and this type of critical tools that Laura Mulvey has used is the ultimate analytical tools that can be used for reading all genres of films, all kinds of films, is a big question. But you always have to understand that this is the base, that it deals with the gaze and the representation of women on screen. Now, no feminist film theory or any critical tool which deals with feminism, which deals with the image of woman or woman as a subject, moves away from this entire broader subject. So, if you understand or if you read Laura Mulvey in a little more detail, then the later criticisms or how have the feminist film school has moved or have developed from Laura Mulvey's critical analysis, that will be very clear to you.